everyone, and welcome to Dirty Laundry. I'm your host, Code Marvelous, and again, today I'm joined by Chris. Say hello.
Hi, everyone.
Chris is one of my Netrunner buddies that I met at PAX 2015, and he's joining me today to work on the newly spoiled Jesminder Sareen that we're both very, very excited about. Chris, really quickly, you want to let everybody know where you're from and what you're all about?
Sure. I am the creator of a video series on YouTube called Hidden Assets, and I also used to do a lot of in-person recording for tournaments around the area, and Seattle area, I should say. And I'm just an avid player of Netrunner, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, seems good. Seems good. Well, thank you very much for joining me. And today we're going to be talking about Jesminder Sareen, as we mentioned, the girl behind the curtain, who's coming out in the first pack.
I'm so excited.
Pack, that we hopefully will have next week.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
That's the dream. And she's got a very interesting ability, kids, and that is that she avoids the first tag during each run. So good.
That's right. So no more worrying about data raven tags. Just run right through those. Got to pay the trace still, but it's not hard to do. Gutenberg, don't worry about it.
Well, yeah, you have to double stack tag ice before the tags matter.
Yep.
I think also it's very important to note that this deck or this identity is meant to directly counter sync.
Yeah, my favorite corp right now is Sync. So
because she laughs at your one Gutenberg on R&D early. She could just make 4 runs on that. She doesn't care.
Yeah, you can't rush out behind a Raven anymore, and you can't just hide a kitty cat behind a Raven. It just doesn't work anymore against her. I mean, it's still is up in the air how good the matchup will be. It's going to be difficult and definitely change the dynamic of Shaper versus NBN.
Yeah. Well, that's always been one of the biggest concerns, I would say. When you're Anarch, you don't care as much. It slows you down early, but then you just kind of peel the ice back. But in Shaper, it was always having to do all of these weird kind of roundabout tag avoidance things, whether it's having Film Critic or including New Angeles City Hall, or, you know what I'm saying, or now the strength really of Nexus Kate is that it gets around that Shaper problem of all the sync tags by just saying, I have 6 link, all of your ice is irrelevant.
Right, yeah, I mean, we've seen Nexus Kate do some good work. I actually think that you could do a pretty good Nexus Jess. Pretty good.
I don't know.
Nice.
Zero base link.
I mean, the thing is that if they do trace you out, you don't take a tag. So that's pretty cool. So it's just pay a bunch of money and the run, and then you just kind of sit back and gain more money. Seems okay.
Yeah, no, it's not bad. I just think... I think that that's definitely not bad, but when we talk about her console a little bit later, I don't think we have seen as much direct synergy between someone in their console like this in a very long time.
Yeah, for sure. I think the closest is probably Geist and Forger.
Yeah, so let's drop the actual picture that we have and we'll get to actually building the deck. So she also is, 45-15, so she's completely standard runner, which is nice. But there's some side effects of her ability that we were discussing earlier, and that is a couple of events that are kind of playable. One that's kind of playable, and the other one that's not really playable, kind of become possible when playing her. And one of the most notable cards that she interacts with is Code Siphon, which was meant, it's in the name. It was supposed to be the Shaper account siphon equivalent, right? But based on what Shaper does, where instead of money, it's installing a program for cheaper, which is what Shapers are all about, making things less expensive.
Right.
But it just wasn't playable. Did you have any experience playing this card or trying to get this card to work?
I got this card to work once in a single game only, and I code siphoned into a Femme and then ran a remote and won the game. That's the best I ever did with it, but I had my entire rig out. The weird thing about Code Siphon is it requires you to have breakers out in order to really use it, unless the corp is broke.
Right.
Which is something we might get to here in a little bit.
Which goes hand in hand with the other one. So I think if we're going to start, I think we probably do want at least 2 copies of this card because we don't have to worry about the tag afterwards as the additional cost. So
let's play 3. Let's just go whole hog on this one. It might not be correct to play 3, but let's go ahead and just throw 3 in there.
All right. So to kind of color the conversation, so the ability of this card to install something for cheap is good, but only if you're playing, as Chris mentioned, big programs, and you have to kind of already have your rig out for this to make sense. And also, you had to spend an extra click and a tag to click at 2 credits to clear the tag afterwards to, not die. She just ignores that tag, so the downside of this event is gone.
Right.
So this goes hand in hand with another event that does see play in certain decks, certainly, but it's not for every deck, once again, because it's a good ability that comes with a side effect that you don't really want to deal with, and that's Vamp.
Right.
So,
well, both of these cards, the drawback of one tag is so much more important when you're a shaper than when you're a criminal, or even an anarch half the time. Like they don't really care. Yeah. I mean, it does care. Certain builds of, Reyna do care, but they usually are able to mitigate that just by having so much money. They could clear the tags, no problem.
Right.
But Shaper's economy, unless you're Magnum Opus based, is entirely resource. So, keeping tags is not good. And say you'd want to vamp and you end up taking another tag by something, you're kind of screwed. Your whole board is going to be messed up. So it's not worth it.
Or you have to bail on the vamp.
Yeah, I have seen some pretty good Chaos Theory Vamp and Siphon decks in the past that have done very well at tournaments. So they're not completely unheard of, but they are a little bit rare.
But they're also not resource based. They're almost always Magnum Opus based.
Yeah, exactly.
So Vamp says that you can run HQ and you can basically burn your own money to make the corp burn money, right?
Right.
And this gets a lot better if you don't have to take the tag afterwards, because you can do it 4th click, you can do it 3rd click after getting some money, and then run a remote, and you don't have to worry about getting nuked the next turn. So it's just, I think it's going to be solid for her. How many do you think we should include?
No more than 2, I think. 2's a good number here. They are 2 influence each, so I think eventually, because Shaper has a lot of draw, you'll find one.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw in 3 of these because why not? With Shaper, we want piles of money.
Money's good.
I think we want 2 same old things just as a start, and if we want more, we can put more in.
Sure. 2 same old things is fine.
We were discussing that if we're gonna go all in on Code Siphon.
Femme is such a good card with Code Siphon because if you can get it out, it makes you it's easy to get another Femme out. So you kind of want easy programs to get out, right? Basically, this one's not that easy to get out, but you could do things like test run it out. You could Stimhack it out, things like that. So there are options, but I definitely think you want at least 1, maybe 2. I would go with 2 for this particular venture, but that's just me. I like having an extra one. I hate drawing the Femme, and if you don't have a way to get it back in the deck, and there's really no way except for Levy, you could be kind of screwed. So
yep. So Femme, especially since a lot of the high value ice that has come out in Data and Destiny and in the last cycle are high strength 1 subroutine pieces of ice. Femme has, I think, become more potent because it's just like, oh, you've got an Archangel. That's great. I'll just pay 1 credit for that. That's fine.
Yeah. Or touring. I mean, I love femming at touring and never having to worry about going through it with a zoo or something like that's pretty nice.
So let's drop 2 of those in there.
Sure.
All right, so we got 2 of those. So we're at 6 influence thus far. Let me turn the tournament rules on.
So I have a question. Do we want fast advance protection? Because we are Shaper, and
I mean we're gonna have SMC.
We're gonna have SMC. So
I feel like since we can actually take Clot as a 1-of and actually make it work, I feel like we should have it, because in the matchups where we don't need it, I mean, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
because when we want it, we really want it.
Exactly. You're Shaper, you draw a lot. We're going to have a lot of draw in our deck, so...
Yeah, I feel like we're going to want those good old-fashioned diesels.
Yep.
Just to accelerate the deck.
I might even throw in 2 quality times, but we can come back to those if you want.
Well, when we were discussing this earlier, we were thinking about maybe doing resource-based draw. And if we're doing like Proco, I don't want the quality times as well, because it's just too much money and too much overdrawing.
For sure. I think it's either or. I'm not really set on either one. I'm always a little bit worried, though, when I have both Magnum Opus and Proco in the same deck, because it's just a lot of expensive things that might not actually get played. Magnum Opus will get played, but you can kind of get stuck at times. So I don't know.
Okay.
I'm okay with both, though. I'm okay with both. Let's just throw both in there.
What, quality times?
No, I was thinking you play some Proco. Yeah, it's fine. Proco's pretty good right now. Magnum and Proco.
I went to put in Proco instead of putting in Professional Contacts. That's not a card. Yeah, I mean, I love Professional Contacts. It's the best card that gets exponentially worse every turn after the first that you don't see it.
Yeah.
Like, literally, when I play my CT deck, if I can find Proco early, I'm like, things are good. We're in a good place. Like, alright, so we got the Proco.
Magnum. I think we definitely want to back. I think Magnum is going to be like our workhorse here.
Do we want 2 or 3?
Let's put 3 in there. We can cut them down if we need some more space, but we probably don't need all 3. That said, like, I like starting with 3 and kind of trimming down. So.
Right. Do we want to put any kind of HQ pressure into the deck?
So this is one of the things I haven't figured out yet, and I'm sure it'll take people a while, but you already have 2 Vamp, which is really good HQ pressure. Do you need a legwork? And I honestly am not sure, because when we add in clone ships, we're going to be at 11 influence, and we might need the extra influence for Lady. That's a possibility. We could not play Lady. We could play something else, and then we could definitely fit in a legwork. What do you think?
I think in this case, because there's already other things that we're going to be kind of like flopping around, I don't think that we necessarily want another thing that we're going to need to recur, even though Lady's really strong.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might just play a Corroder or something, you know what I'm saying? Something that's a stable breaker, just so that's one less thing we have to worry about.
Okay.
Getting out.
I mean, I have never had problems getting Lady out, but.
Well, no. That's not what I'm saying. It's the, we don't want to have to recur the Lady instead of moving Femmes around. Moving Femme around is going to be better for us. And then the other thing, it's like when I play my Wayland deck now, I can do the mental math on people's Shaper decks and be like, this is how many barrier subroutines you can break before I auto-win. Right. So if I can bait out this many runs, I win. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely. Sure. So let's play Corroder.
Yeah.
I think that's totally fine. Like, by the way, I'm not sure, again, what's correct here, but...
I don't know. I don't have nearly the experience. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on it, I don't have nearly the experience with Shaper that I do with Anarch. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, like, this is definitely outside of my wheelhouse. Like, Lady is not something that I really played until I started playing my Haley deck, because you don't import breakers when you're noise.
Right. Right. I think
Right.
both are fine. I think in this case, the one Corroder saves us a slot, which is good.
So we've got Corroder, we've got Femme. Do we want to back up Mimic for low level stuff, or do we want to just say nah?
I always play Mimic. I know people will probably not like this very much, but I will play one Mimic and two Femme. And I will play Mimic first if I need it, and if I don't need it, I will then get the Femme out. So, but sometimes you just, like in some matchups, like even early game against Engineering the Future, you kind of just want the Mimic out to deal with Architects if you hit one. But then later on, you can kind of siphon out the Femme and deal with some other things.
So when we were talking about what we might use as a decoder in this, you had mentioned Cyber-Cypher. Do you want to talk about some of the thoughts behind why?
Yeah, so this is another sort of point of dissension, but in Shaper players, like sometimes you play the Cyber-Cypher with the Zoo, sometimes you play two Cyber-Cypher, sometimes you play one Gordian Blade. I think those are the three main ones, but like I'm wondering if we just want to play one Cyber-Cypher and maybe like a torch or something like that, and basically we play our Cyber-Cypher on R&D until we get our torch out. And once we get our torch out, we just can overwrite our Cyber-Cypher or something like that.
Yeah,
that might be pretty fun.
That helps with our early aggression, the Cyber-Cypher, and sets us up for an early R&D lock that they have to address.
Yeah.
And then if we go into the Vamp play in the mid-game, we can just move the Cyber-Cypher onto HQ and be like, it's go time.
Right.
And then, do that kind of switch. Or, the other thing potentially is if they don't actually see the pieces for it, we can always go for the start installing the RDIs. They put ice on R&D. We vamp down and then just start going nuts. But yeah. There's a lot of options. I think the thing that excites me the most about her is because she can get rid of the tag from so many of these events, and because she can just kind of go through ice, it just increases the threat level of her in the early game, of how aggressive she can be.
For sure, yeah. And she's going to be a threat to be reckoned with, I hope. So we've got the Femmes, we've got our breakers, I think. Is there anything else we need? Do we need an Atman?
Oh.
Atman's usually a stopgap in these sorts of decks.
We could put a single Atman, and it's the Atman 4 to catch the things that Mimic can't hit.
Right, sometimes 5. Like lately I've been putting a lot of Atman 5 because of it becomes a little bit more difficult to deal with itchy 2.0s, especially if you don't have Sharpshooter. So, and you don't want to break it with Femme, it's just way too expensive. So having the Atman...
That's brutal.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 4 more influence left. Should we throw in 3 clone chips or 2 clone chips? What do you want to do with that?
I think maybe 2 clone chips, because there's not a lot of stuff that we're going to be purposefully trashing and then repeating, except for maybe the Cyber-Cyphers.
Right.
I think the clone chips are there maybe if we lose something.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with 2.
It's also possible, like, I guess we have 2 influence left, so we could play 1 or 2 Stimhacks. So in the case that we overdraw the Femme, we can clone chip the Femme back out with a Stimhack, which is always fun.
Yeah, I'm about it. Stimhack's a good card.
Yep.
Very underrated. Oh, we forgot something really important. We needed to just put her console in.
You want to say something about her console?
Oh, I want to say many, many things about her console, in that it is a better version of what is Cyber Solutions BEM chip, because it costs 1 less.
Oh man, it's so good.
And it's 2 memory, and once per turn, immediately after you access a card from R&D, you may add that card to the bottom of R&D. If you do, take 1 tag. So it's not every time you run R&D you take a tag. You can choose to do it, and it is essentially an imp, but it's worse because they can't get what was thrown out back with Jackson Howard.
Right, it's worse for them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's great. Like, I was just thinking, like, most of the time, Engineering the Future, even RP doesn't care. They don't care whether you trash their Caprice because they'll just have an interns in hand or something, or you'll run into a crick. But this way, you turn off their cricks. You turn off. I mean, not always, but in some select situations, you might turn off a crick, or you might not turn off a crick, but keep a crick turned off. Yeah, but it's so good. It's a very, very control-y Shaper card. I think we want 2 in this for sure.
Yeah. Well, the other thing to keep in mind is with just the Maya in play, we can have a Magnum Opus and then any combination of 4 of these breakers in play, which is just amazing. Now, that having been said, since we do have an Atman and Corroder and Cyber-Cypher and Femme and Mimic and Torch, do we want to include any other memory of any kind, or are we just saying...
No, I think we're good, honestly. If, like the rule I would think of it for Shapers, like some of these breakers are going to be disposable, like Cyber-Cypher. Once you get your Torch out, you just don't need it anymore because Torch is a better Cyber-Cypher.
Well, it's the Cyber-Cypher for everywhere.
Right, and I think you can actually realistically have out one Magnum Opus, 2 Femme, and then each of a Corroder and a Torch. And that should be good for the rest of the game. Like, I don't think you'll really need much else. Maybe an Atman for a Femme, you know. So, like, you have 1 flex slot. But that gives you a lot of leeway, you know. I mean, having the extra memory just turns on this game plan a lot, so...
So I think also, of course, especially with the synergy with her console, we're going to want a full complement of R&D interfaces.
Yep.
Since we're running these big, meaty things, do we want to include some number of diesels just to have them?
Diesels? Do you mean...
Not diesels, moddeds.
Moddeds, yeah. I think we want modded. I think maybe 2 modded. 3 is fine, too. Everything is good with modded in this deck.
Yeah. It's also one of my favorite pieces of art from the core set.
Yeah.
Just because she's working on Magnum Opus, which is the thing that you use
in the deck
modded on most frequently.
Yeah. It's looking pretty strong. We have self-mod. Yeah, okay, we got self-mod. Let's see. So we got 4 more slots.
It's really not looking bad.
No, it's not. I mean, I would say, you know, you could just throw in a Plascrete. Always need 1 Plascrete. And maybe like 3 daily casts and call it good. Because there's your economy, Magnum Opus, Proco, daily casts. You have some econ in modded.
Well, since we're tag resistant, do we want to bail on Mopus, go for a fuller suite, and then go for resource economy?
That's not a bad idea. Yeah, that's an idea. The only thing I'd be concerned about is whether you'd be able to get enough money to Vamp, you know? Right. And I think Opus is just so good with Vamp. If you can get the Corp in a kind of weird situation where they're trying to play keep up with you, you can stall them out, you can keep them from scoring, right? You can threaten to go anywhere. And what I love about this deck so far is that Vamp plus Code Siphon, or just Maya by itself, is just an insane combo. Like, if you access, you're going to Maya. If you don't, you're going to probably want to be Code Siphoning, right? So, in each situation, you've got both of the major centrals threatened, right? They let you in, and you get something big to keep going, or they res and kind of like hurt their economy and put them in a really tough spot so you can Vamp them easily. It also means that, and I was just thinking about this before we started recording, is that Chrysium Grid is not super effective against this deck because you can put, because they really rarely have 2 Chrysium Grids on the centrals. So
right. Well, the other thing is if they do put the Chrysium on R&D, let's say.
Yeah.
And we've got 3 RDIs in the console down, or let's just paint a more realistic scenario and say it's the early game because we're still using Code Siphon. So we've got 1 RDI, maybe 2, and Maya, and then they flip the thing. You're like, oh, well, I'm not using Eater, so I guess I'll just not do the Code Siphon and instead just C3 cards and put one of them at the bottom of your deck. Like,
Oh, it's too bad that you can't put the Code Siphon on the bottom. It has to be from R&D. Okay, not the root of R&D. That's too bad. That would be amazing. Like if you could just bottom an upgrade.
bottom of Res Chrysium.
That'd be so awesome.
That'd be too strong. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy good.
Yeah.
How effective this was. I wish the John Masanori tag happened while you were still running. Then it would be the best. We'd cut the Procos immediately because it's run, good things happen, and nothing bad ever happens. Like
right. Then we could just run Da Vinci and just run crazy. Like it'd be so much fun.
It's so
too good.
I think this skeleton, like this base, is pretty good. Stimhack helps us close games or get stuff back. I would say in this deck, we would definitely need to be very judicious with what we decided to use for clone chip.
Yep.
Because those are precious commodities. I feel like this is going to be one of those decks, like I had mentioned earlier. If we don't get the Proco early, but we already have Magnum Opus down, we probably just have to bail on it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I went a little bit different way when I first built this deck, and I put in quality times instead of Proco. But I think that both are good, and I think they're both a legit way to go with the deck.
Yeah, see, now that we have the moddeds in, I'm starting to think maybe quality time might be the better choice.
Yeah.
Cut the Procos, go up to a third modded and 2 quality times.
Yeah. Or play 1 Scavenge instead of the third modded or something like that.
Yeah, that could definitely do it too, because that synergizes well with Femme. And a lot of what we have. People need to not discount the resetting your Atman.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a very good skeleton. And if we do manage to get tagged, there's nothing terrible that's going to happen to us. Like, a lot of what we've got going on is not going to be able to be affected by tags.
I think generally just having a Magnum Opus means that you're most likely not going to be C-Source Scorched twice. I mean, it kind of goes off the table, so you're resistant to that, and then you have Plascrete for like the 24/7 matchup. Mid-seasons, you can pretty much deal with mid-seasons. What's amazing about that is like you can just outmoney them and then vamp them down, and then they can't mid-seasons you, and for probably the rest of the game. That's just insane. So I'm really in love with this deck archetype. I'm gonna probably be playing it during Store Championship season if it turns out to be good. Let's see, wait. So, we have in my version I don't have the torch. I'm trying to find a way to fit in the torch because I do want to play like 1 Cyber-Cypher, 1 torch. I think that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing Code Siphon, you need targets for it.
For sure, yeah.
Because one of the great sadnesses of my life is that things like modded or Code Siphon can't affect the setting the strength of Atman portion of the install.
Right.
It can only affect the initial 3 cost, because if something like Code Siphon could affect the strength setting of Atman, it would be even more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this is a really good skeleton. Once it's automated on Jinteki.net, everybody watching at home, you could tune in. However long that takes, I can't imagine it'll be more than a couple of days. Chris and I will get back together and we'll pilot this and see how we do against some randos on Jinteki. Do you have any kind of final thoughts as to how you imagine this deck would play out? What your strategy might be?
Yeah, so I mean, this particular build, and this is probably not true of other builds. I've seen some like triple account siphon, triple code siphon decks, which are maybe a little bit too ambitious. I mean, definitely going to be annoying, but the thing I think to keep in mind is it's a control deck like most Shaper decks, right? It's like control remotes by controlling the money, by controlling the cards in R&D, and locking R&D, with the help of things like Vamp and your kind of unfair breaker suite of double Femme torch. And, like, it's pretty awesome. Just the ability to go anywhere with Femme makes it pretty difficult to score. Yeah, I think it's a control deck. I honestly do, and I think it's kind of we'll probably play something like the Nexus Kate deck that sits back and waits and builds money and gets everything set up, and then when you get like a same old the first self mod out, you can probably start code siphoning without a problem, right? And then once you get the second code siphon or second self mod out or the clone chip, then you can do the second code siphon. Like you can kind of like snowball in a way into your rig and then just control the game with Vamp for the rest of the time. So
yeah, I think this is going to feel a lot like late game kit, where once you're set, like you're going to be kind of stumbling early, but like if you get set up, the chance of the corp taking victory is significantly lessened the longer the game goes on, because you just end up, like you said, completely threatening all servers at all times, which means that they can't really do anything. And if you're seeing, if we're seeing effectively, if we make 2 runs a turn on R&D, we're seeing effectively 5 cards, not counting anything that we trashed the old-fashioned way.
Right.
That's pretty good. That's a 5-card R&D lock's pretty intense.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. And Chris, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You can find Chris on YouTube. Hidden Assets is the name of the channel. Check him out. And everybody, you can find A&R Black Hats on Twitter, Facebook, and also of course, on YouTube. We also have everything up on iTunes and SoundCloud. We'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot.